good afternoon, financial professionals. I'm Phil Haug, Senior VP of Sales here at E4 Insurance Services. Welcome you to the Brew, building relationships every week. Today, thank you for tuning in. And for those of you joining us for the very first time, I want to say thank you and welcome. And we'd like to start out today's brewcast with celebrating today's national days. Today is National Senior Citizen Day, and I'm just going to let that one rest. And it's also one of my favorites. It's National Spumoni Day, or Italian ice cream or dessert. So if we ever needed another another reason to celebrate and have dessert, today is the day. So if anyone asks you, it's National Spumoni Day. So that's something we got to take advantage of. On today's brew, we have E4 Wealth Strategist Bill Anderson, will be sharing real life examples of what business owners do to get their maximum tax deductions and or diversified savings ideas in today's market. We encourage you to use the chat box or raise your hand to ask any questions, and all attendees are entered into a drawing for a CE voucher and a Starbucks gift card, and we'll announce our winner at the end. So thank you for tuning in. And Bill, we appreciate you investing your time with us to answer some questions and give us some live fire drills, some real things that have happened in the past. So prior to the meeting, Bill had sent us some questions and had some things put in forth with some experiences that he's had. So we're going to get started with just Bill, tell me about, you've been doing this a long time and you've been highly successful working in a lot of different capacities. Through that, you've had a lot of experiences. I'd like you to kick off by telling me about the very favorite plan that you were part of.
Okay, I will. Great question, Phil. Thank you. And thanks also for not bringing up Senior Citizen Day prior to this call and the recording button turning on. Yeah, I'm 60 and I don't know, some would say I'm a senior citizen, according to the young folks on this call.
I would have brought it up, but you might have forgot by now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, for my first case, I'm going to ask you a question, Phil.
Yeah.
So a couple of weeks ago, we had David West on this brew. He's an incredible talent. I've used him on a couple of these plans personally. When he was describing it, he basically said the numbers today, as it sits in the tax code, on a 55 to 60-year-old person, you can literally get $500,000 to $600,000 into a defined benefit plan.
Mm-hmm.
And even more attractive is on a 40-year-old, where we used to just say, go away, we can only do like 100 on them. Mm-hmm. Today we can get 250 on them. Mm-hmm. So you heard him 2 weeks ago. What have you done as a salesperson, as a sales manager personally? Did you pick up the phone and did you call some folks?
I did actually. There's a handful of individuals that are in my peer group that I reached out to, and it's kind of when you get a new toy, you want to play with it. And those conversations kind of open up my eyes to some opportunities. So personally, I reached out to some friends that own businesses and are executives with inside of them, and started having those conversations. And what was interesting is, surprisingly, there was a lot of interest because it was something that they were not aware existed, right? And once everybody's gotten so used to what I would refer to as a traditional planning, your 401ks, your profit sharing, things like that, that you kind of get entrenched and you try to figure out how to make the most out of those. And then when we started diving into more looking at some of these dollar amounts, looking at some of the cash flow issues, looking at some of the tax efficiencies, and I kept telling them, like, it's taxed appropriate. You're paying taxes on the front end, but you don't have to pay them on the back end. It's not tax free. It's tax appropriate. It started to click. And what was kind of cool too is for the younger, we talked about the younger ages, which 40, I guess, is young relative, but the cost of insurance at a younger age is so much less than it is in an advanced age. So, yes, there's not as much money that can be put in. However, there's not as much that needs to be allocated towards the underlying insurance cost. So kind of you're not fighting an uphill battle from there. They both look really good, but yeah, so hopefully that answers your question.
That does. Yes. Yeah. Thank you for that. Because, roughly 14, 15 years ago, very similar to your answer, is when I got into this marketplace, if you will, figured out how to discuss defined benefit plans with pretty much a wirehouse or a bank advisor back in the day. And it opened so many doors. It was something that they didn't really know too much about at that point, again, 14, 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But as time has kind of moved forward, that industry and really a lot of our industry, they understand it. They've heard about it. I should say they've heard about it, but they don't fully understand it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you can sock away that kind of money on a pre-tax basis, it drives a lot of habits, I suppose, for people. Now they're maxing out their 401k. They become a business owner. They max out their SEP. You tell
Yeah.
them you can do more than your 69,000 this year, right? But you can get it to be as a 45-year-old 300, three and a quarter. Tell me more, right? It's pretty cool. So,
Right.
not forgetting your question because of the senior moment hasn't really left me. My favorite case is a simple one, right? It was a case probably drafted, written up about 12, 13 years ago. They funded it for the full 8-year period of time, and then they undid the plan. Here's what was fun about it, Phil. You had the advisor and this very successful, as David West called it, profitable attorney, and they're
Mm-hmm.
brothers, right? So he's probably 50 at the time that we're doing it, the attorney brother, funds it for 8 years, gets to the end of the plan. Everything's been great. He's written off a lot of money. And basically what we decided is when we started the plan, it was going to be bought out of the plan for the purpose of basically creating a LERP for himself, tax-free income in the future. But 8 years later, I used to joke with a guy, you have the Midas touch, everything you touch turns to gold, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this guy was worth, I don't know, 20, $25 million. He's 58 years of age. And it's like, I think I'm going to retire. Good idea. He was tired of doing the legal work. So,
Yeah.
bottom line is he bought it out of the plan. He then took that $500,000 of cash value from that policy and he bought a second to die on, he and his wife. So basically, I think it created almost $3 million of paid up insurance.
Wow.
Here's what was fun about it. The younger advisor brother says to his older brother, this is like you purchasing estate planning life insurance in your mid 20s because you paid for it with pre-tax. Yeah, we used some dollars that had some capital gains tax associated with them to buy it out.
Right.
But here's the math, right? And the younger brother shows the older brother, this is incredible. It's a good deal. Here's the best thing about these plans. I've done, I don't know, I've done hardly any of them myself. They're all done with other advisors, right? But
Yeah.
I've been part of, I don't know, 80, 85 of them, maybe something like that. It's the smile factor. When
Right.
you get done with a plan and they peel it out or they end the plan and they are stoked and happy, it's a lot of fun. I did do one plan myself ever, just one. It was a former brother-in-law, good friend of mine. We're on the golf course after he had rolled his plan out, and we're just sitting on the tee box. He said, "Hey, Bill, thanks." I'm like, what? He said, "Thanks for helping me save all that money." And I'm like, John, it's like no big deal. You did it. I didn't do anything. He said, "You showed me the plan. You
Yeah.
showed me how to save a couple $1 million, and I'm able to retire and not worry about anything." So it was an additional couple $1 million pre-tax. So
Pretty
two really
powerful
fun
stuff.
plans. Yeah, yeah, pretty cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Um, so you referenced a couple of our previous guests over the past couple of
Mhm.
weeks. Last week we had Armando from Security Mutual on the brew. Have you, they kind of have I want to say a niche. We are getting in, you brought up a couple things that I definitely want to highlight is not a huge market. These are huge opportunities, but there's
Mhm.
niche players, right? So, once you get exposed to this opportunity, you find out who's kind of the space they want to play in, and they're really, really good at it. So, Security Mutual's kind of got their space they like to play in. Tell me about your experiences with using them in the past.
Very good, actually. I appreciated Armando's technical advice last week. But bottom line is, I think of a case that I use. I just always put it back to a case that I was in front of, um, and it was about 2.5 years ago that it was put in place. That embedded TPA, the relationship that they have at Security Mutual,
Yep.
has been incredible. I mean, I'm used to at the end of the first year getting a call from the advisor, answering a bunch of questions because it's very technical. It's very complicated stuff. It's not something everybody does every day, right?
Right.
So here's the beauty of this one. It was a husband wife Missouri farming couple. All of their ranch hands, if you will, were 1099. So it was just mom and dad in their really early 60s. 2.5 years ago, I have not received one phone call from that advisor nor the client in relationship to questions about the TPA, the tax filings, the stuff that goes along with it. So
Right.
the way they do it there is awesome. And if you're looking for a turnkey plan, they know what they're doing.
They're definitely the ones to.
Yep.
Perfect. Um, to that point, we had David West come in and talk about season money.
Yeah.
How does that work out on the street?
Oh, that's fun. So I always think about, I spend half my year in the Twin Cities area. So I think of 3Mers and Target people, folks that were executives that decided to retire early, create their own unique consulting client, might be 3M or Target, right? And
Yeah.
they're successful, right? Like, woo, way to go. And what's fun about it is they've got all this money sitting in their old 401k and defined contribution plans, whatever.
Hmm.
They've rolled them into an IRA, so they can take that money back into a profit sharing plan. It's called seasoned money. And I've got an advisor that we work with here at E4 that literally will take $300,000 to $500,000 per year of that pre-tax money inside of the qualified plan with a life insurance contract and stick it into a 4 or a 5 pay design on insurance.
Hmm.
At the end of 5 or 6 years, a year later, they then roll it out, right? So very similar to that first story I shared, where you're rolling it out, you're buying it out of the pension plan, and
Hmm.
now you're sitting there with the cash value on an insurance policy that may have, well, the cash value that you're buying it out for is usually less than the premiums that you put in, right? So there's some economics to that.
Yeah.
And you can get down a path of getting really technical on these plans.
Right.
But here's what we do. In the year after you stop funding, you peel out, basically take a loan to pay off the loan. I'm sorry, to pay the taxes. And then you let it percolate for another number of years. And then it turns into a LERP or a super Roth plan.
Huh.
So, and it gets really technical, really quick. But here at E4, we do them. We know
We
what we're
handle the
talking
heavy
about. We can
technical. All
help.
right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which brings up, again, these are, I don't want to call them complicated. I like the word technical because there's a lot. I mean, none of these steps are insurmountable, but there's just a lot of steps that have to be done,
Sure.
particularly at the right spot, right? And
Mm-hmm.
again, it highlights the point of working with individuals that have experience with that and know how to make sure that the boxes are checked. So again, kind of highlight the emphasis of importance of working with somebody like yourself or the professionals at E4. On that specific example of season, you've it's kind of interesting you brought up, it's always these concepts are cool, right? Everybody gets stars in your eyes with six-figure targets and these big numbers, and everybody wins, and the clients are getting an opportunity that they weren't aware of. Advisors have an opportunity to present maybe a once in a career style case, and but a lot of times it's like, well, where do I go? Where do these people reside at, right? Where are these prospects at? And I'm glad you brought up the being in the Twin Cities, the individual that has worked at Target or 3M or a corporate executive who's done well and they've gone out and become a consultant or they've started up their own side business and they've got an opportunity there. Again, it's kind of like I got a great idea, but who can I share it with, right? And I appreciate you sharing, kind of the target market on that,
Sure. Yeah.
or something similar to that. So on that, on last week's brew, we talked about buy, sell, key person planning, and defined benefit plans. Um, use it with the key person with defined benefit plans, right?
Yeah.
How
It's
did
awesome.
you how did you interpret that comment?
Yeah. I interpret that not so much for our clients, but really for all the advisors I work with,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you think about it, it's like, are they in a partnership, right? Buy, sell between partners. If not, when are you going to get in a partnership, right? And as I've watched my friends in our industries grow and mature, they have a senior partner, junior partner relationship, right? Why?
Right.
Because it makes sense. And within that network of people, they oftentimes have key people as well. So to be able to
Right.
do that planning on a pre-tax basis is wonderful. But let's be honest, the crowd, the people that are watching this recording or are watching today, most of you are in this business, and
Right.
most of you should really do one of these plans on yourself. Even if you don't do it on yourself, you should go through the planning process for yourself because you are the audience, right? And it's kind of like everything. Once you own it yourself, once you've been through the process yourself, it becomes very easy to share with a client. So it's just kind of there. And I'll give you some a quick full disclosure here. People that know me know that I got divorced a number of years ago. I got remarried 12 years ago. Last weekend celebrated that 12th anniversary. Yay, it's all going good.
Yeah.
But
Congratulations.
yeah, thanks, Phil. But I kind of look at that and it's like why I got into the defined benefit space all those years ago. The writing was on the wall. I mean, at some point down the road, I'm going to be that person that needs one of these plans. Well, guess what? 2025, next year, I will be opening one of these plans on myself
Perfect.
because I've been writing off old tax style, right? The old X is paid a fair amount of money every month. That adds up through the year,
Yep.
and it's all a tax write-off for me. Well, next year, the 72 to 75,000, whatever the supplement's going to be for 2025,
Hmm.
is not going to be enough to what I'm used to as a tax write-off. So I will be doing a defined benefit plan because I don't want to pay income tax on X. I want to
Right.
pay income tax on X less.
Right.
So, anyways, I kind of look at that, and I'll turn it back to you, Phil. You're a young guy, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, how does this work for you when you look at this? You're hiring people here at E4. You're
Hmm.
working with some advisors yourself. How does this really fall into your niche? You mentioned the top end here that you've called some clients, but where does your excitement level get around this level of planning?
Well, before I answer that question, we did have a chat box question on can you do this with a solo 401k? Are you able to do these qualified plans using life insurance and a solo 401k?
So if you go back to Armando's conversation last week,
Yep.
the answer technically is yes. Any
Hmm.
qualified plan can have it inside, can have life insurance inside of a plan. You just have to check the box, right?
Right.
But that's really the defined contribution rules
Hmm.
versus the defined benefit rules. And I'm not a big fan of the defined contribution because it's small, it's a lot of work,
Yeah.
right? Where the defined benefit, that's the client that
Limitless.
I'm looking for through an advisor is who wants to max out their pre-tax qualifications, right? Who wants to
Right.
save four, five, $600,000 pre-tax because it makes sense to them? That's the
Right.
ideal client, and that's the
Right.
ideal client. You're going to add life insurance to it. But
Right.
a solo 401k plan, yes, it can have life insurance in it.
And there are some, with some of the plans there are with the solo 401k, there are some workarounds. Again, going back to, Armando and David, there are some workarounds where you can do a percentage of your existing plan. So if you've got somebody that's coming off and establishing their own business and establishing a solo 401k, they can, a percentage of their old assets can purchase life insurance, and then a percentage going forward can also go towards it. So yeah, the short answer to the question is yes, you can.
Yeah.
The long answer is yes, you can. And if you want to maximize it, you got to kind of have a few workarounds. But to what gets me excited to answer your question. So there's two parts of it. So, and I'll try to keep it brief for sake of time, which is something that I struggle with at times. But there's the first and foremost is that being in the business for 20 years, 20 plus years, you build a lot of relationships, and you do have strong understanding of the business and the people's business that you work with. So I've never really taken the capacity as a salesperson. It's always been like I've been always been the advisor to the advisor, the consultant to the advisor. And as I'm aging and as I'm getting older, you're in that beginning phase where it's like you're hungry, you're working hard, you're driving, you're trying to build your business, you're trying to build your practice, and it's kind of like by hook or by crook, you try to go get it done. And then you start getting into a phase where you're more established and referrals are coming in and the practice is growing. But then like you start waking up and you start thinking, oh my gosh, like I don't maybe want to do this till I'm 90 years old. Like maybe I want to sell this thing out, or maybe I want to bring in another associate. We see solo practitioners bring in junior partners and things like that. It's legacy planning, right? So kind of embodying that advisor to the advisor standpoint, it's like, hey, you're sitting down and to what you're just talking about on the last question, you're advising your business owners to take advantage of these plans to fund your transition, to fund their transition. What are you doing to look at your own, right? And what's interesting and what's kind of fun is the advisors that I've worked with that have actually done it themselves and they kind of made themselves the guinea pig. So they go and build the plans out, they kind of play around with it, they break it, they fix it, they figure out the nuances. They jump they start doing more and more stuff themselves. So what's happened is now they're comfortable with it. Now they're willing to go forward and talk. So not only do they handle their business, so to speak, they've put themselves in a position to speak from knowledge on how to advise the other people on how to handle your business. And I think that's kind of, well, I don't think, I know that it's an enjoyable piece to go in and not only help the advisor come up with an idea, but then also help protect their business, going in and showing them how to fund a buyout or have a key person protected and create that, pseudo golden handcuff, golden, parachute type scenario. So that part is really cool. The other part that I'm excited about is this is an area, the faster things move, the more complex they get. And in the information era where things are not slowing down, right? There's more computing capacity. I always go back to there's more computing capacity in this phone than there was in all of NASA when they sent the first rocket to the moon,
Crazy.
right?
Yeah.
And there's 100,000 plus lines of code in an average sedan in America, right? Or SUV, right? There's 50,000 lines of code in the space shuttle, not to make space references, but we're not slowing down when it comes to information, right? And this is an area that from an advisor standpoint, from a E4 standpoint, from an industry standpoint, this is kind of an unspoken area where there's not like good luck Google searching this, right? And there's individuals that you have to specialize in it. You have to create that niche. And when you do, now you can take your area, your county, your state, whatever area you're doing business in, and because nobody's really playing in that space, you can kind of own it. And there's very little things left in this world that you can take ownership on. And this is one of them. And you can become an expert in your community, you can become an expert in your area. And I think that this is, I don't want to call it the Wild West because it's very refined, but this is the one space where if an individual wants to apply themselves, there's really no limits on what you can do. So the ability for advisors, what's got me excited is the ability for advisors to actually tend to their own flock, right? Their own business, but then also create an opportunity for them to go out and get into a market that we really, has been pretty much wide open, with a tremendous amount of opportunity for people to gain some knowledge.
Yeah.
So
And I would add there is no competition out there in this space. We're all
no,
helping each other. It's a very small space.
there's healthy competition. Yeah. So well, with that, we've gone about 25 minutes in today's brew call. So while we wait for any final questions, I'd like to remind you that today's brew and all of our library are fully recorded and shared on the brew page at our website, e4.insurance. Now, if we don't have any other additional questions or I don't see any hands on the screen, Bill, can you pick a number between 1 and 37?
7.
7, lucky number 7. And
Yeah.
your lucky number 7 is Jake Kujawa. And congratulations, you're getting CE and the Starbucks gift card. And be on the lookout for that. That'll be sent to you here shortly. And next week, we'll be wrapping up August focus planning series on life insurance and qualified plans with Corey Cox, senior business consultant solution with Principal, who will discuss retaining key employees and utilizing deferred compensation and executive bonuses with Principal Select Plan and Bonus Plan. Again, we're leveraging our partnerships and our strong relationships with our carriers to provide you guys with information on ways to grow your business. So with that, I want to thank everybody for investing their time. Bill, I very much appreciate you sharing your expertise and knowledge with us. It was very informative today, and I look
Honored
forward
to
to
be part
seeing.
of this. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll see all of you on next week's brew.